be denied, that the propaganda war seizes immediately on any image which it believes can benefit its own cause. The latest of those was the little boy, Omran, pictured in an ambulance, apparently alone, though in fact the ambulance seats were all filled with other children who'd been hurt or at least shocked and traumatized by an explosion. The official story was that the dazed and shell-shocked boy, who was not physically injured but of course mentally terrorized by his experience, had been caused by a Russian bomb. The Russians fairly convincingly disproved that by pictures of the buildings in which the boy had been sheltering, where the windows had not been broken. So it would appear to have been a different kind of munition, most probably a mortar shell, not fired by Russians, but fired most likely by the Syrian army, although you cannot rule out that it was a gas IED belonging to the so-called rebels fighting Syria, fighting the Syrian authorities and the Syrian army. Whoever was responsible for the boy's shock and horror, no one, unless they had a heart of stone, would not be moved by the sight of a little boy covered in dust and with blood caked on his face. He was, however, physically uninjured, unlike the 12-year-old boy who had been, there's no other way of putting this, decapitated on video by people who put it out on YouTube thinking it was a good look. I mention that because the man who took the picture of little Omran in the ambulance is an associate of the people who cut the head off the little boy. At least he posed for pictures with two of them after the crime had been committed. We showed this footage earlier. There they are. They're these big, brave men. Look how they're tormenting this little child just before they cut his head off. Now, two of these murderers, the photographer, who describes himself as a war photographer, but is in fact a political activist in support of that group who murdered that little 12-year-old boy, he posed for pictures with two of the brutal decapitators that you've just seen in that footage. That's a side issue, of course, but the reality is that these kind of pictures and this kind of propaganda moves into overdrive when the terrorists are being defeated, as they currently are in Aleppo. After all, these terrorists have held the eastern part of Aleppo, one of the great and ancient Arab cities, for years. They have been shelling the people, including children, in western Aleppo, under the control of the Syrian government for years, but nobody ever wanted to take, or at least to publish, a picture of the children dying on the other side. So there is no doubt in my mind that those who are responsible for this carnage in Syria have a very keen appreciation and a willing market in the Western media for their propaganda images. We'll see if my first caller agrees.